Hey everyone, welcome to Massachusetts Sports Central. This is our first weekly NFL Power Rankings of the season. So these rankings reflect our feelings as of the end of the preseason and going into week 1. Since it's the first week we've done them, I want to define what we are evaluating since most of these lists you see don't seem to make it clear. This list represents how likely we think that each team will win Super Bowl 52. It is not an ordered list of the best teams, since to win the Super Bowl, circumstances will definitely play a role. For example, a 9-7 team that finishes third and won't make the playoffs will rank lower than a 9-7 team that wins its division, even if they are not as good as the non-playoff team. While this is not a big issue going into the season, since it's hard to see where those kind of situations will come into play later on, that will be something that we will look at a little more later in the season when those kind of things start to shake out. Okay, so let's start our ranks. Coming in at number 32, the New York Jets. This shouldn't be too surprising. I don't think I've seen a list that does not have them as the last place team. They should be very bad. Very, very bad. They seem to more or less be trying to lose, trying to get the highest draft picks possible. I do commend them for adding an NFL caliber wide receiver with the Richardson trade getting Curse back. They had nothing on offense. I don't think that's going to do anything really to change how bad they're going to be on offense, but at least they got something. And kudos to them for actually getting something for Richardson, because it looked like they weren't going to be able to, that they were basically just going to have him stay and then leave as a free agent and, at best get a comp pick for him. So they did better than that. And really, that's the only thing that they've done to improve themselves other than just shed contracts and hopefully get high draft picks. A lot of the other teams that have, kind of gone for we're playing for the future have at least been able to get some compensation for their talent, where the Jets just had a lot of old, overrated and overpaid guys, so they just were releasing them and not getting anything back. All right, enough for the last place team. Number 31, the Chicago Bears. I don't like the Bears. Don't think they're going to be very good. Don't think they have a ton of talent. They have, they have a little bit on defense. They have a little bit on offense. Running back, they got a good one. Quarterback, I don't hate Glennon and, Trubisky, who knows what's going to happen. I didn't like the trade, but, so the Bears are just not going to be good. Straight up not going to be good. They might not be this bad in the end, but until one of those quarterbacks shows that they can really do something with that offense, I think that they're not going to score a lot of points, and I don't think the defense is good enough to hold teams to the anemic offense's levels of scoring. All right, number 30, the Los Angeles Rams. I do not think the Rams are going to be good at all. I don't think the Rams are going to be good moving forward either. So it really more or less starts and ends with Goff. If he turns out to be a decent quarterback, if he turns things around, if he can make a big leap forward, he doesn't have to be the next Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees level of guy. But if he can be above average, the team, again, they can definitely be a lot better than what I have them here. Another wild card is that Aaron Donald has been holding out, and it does not necessarily seem like he's going to stop that anytime soon. The Rams have completely screwed up their salary cap. They have some of the lowest amount of cap room in the entire league, yet they're one of the worst teams in the league. Usually those two things do not go together. At least not, you could have something like the Jets situation where they didn't have a ton of money, but then they did actually jettison a lot of people. The Rams are keeping most of their overpaid, quote-unquote, talent, and are poised to be bad again. Gurley, I think, will be better. I do think the offense will be better, even if Goff is still bad, just because I think they have Fisher was just like poison for that side of the ball, especially. But on defense, they're not bad, but they're not good. And if they take away their by far best player in Donald, I just see them being a disaster. As a side note, absolutely hated the Watkins trade for them. Not that I think Watkins is a bad player, but he is injury prone, and they gave up a second-round draft pick for a guy who's in the last year of his contract. So that basically necessitates them paying the big bucks. Well, assuming he plays well and they want to re-sign him, they're going to have to pony up the money for that when we just mentioned that they have a terrible cap situation. And if they're picking Sammy Watkins or Aaron Donald, they better damn well pick Aaron Donald. All right. Number 29, the San Francisco 49ers. This actually might be the first situation of what we were saying before about the ordered list. I think the 49ers have, none of these teams that we're talking about right now have really any good chance at making the playoffs. I don't think the 49ers have much won, but I actually have them winning more games than a couple of the teams that are going to be talked about in front of them, mostly because they get to play the Rams twice, as well as the Bears. So they're in a kind of a crud division, so I think their record will be slightly inflated relative to a couple of the other teams right in front of them. Now, I have them winning like 5 games, so it's not like, oh, wow, they're so good. And a couple of the teams right in front of them I have winning 3-4 games, so it's not that big of a difference. Anyway, I think this team is going to be pretty good in the coming years. I do like the way that they started out. I like Solomon Thomas. I like the fact that they fleeced the Bears by getting a couple extra draft picks to move down one slot to still take the guy that they were going to take anyway. I like Lynch. I like Shanahan. I think that they're moving in the right direction. I like the draft this year. We'll see. But this year they're still going to be pretty bad. Number 28. We can do a little bit of a ditto there. The Browns. Actually, this is probably the best example so far of what I was saying before, where I actually have them finishing ahead of the Bengals in the standings, but that has more to do with scheduling nuances than the fact that I actually think they're noticeably better than the Bengals. The Bengals, I just think, had a slightly tougher schedule, so I had them winning one less game. Not to let the cat out of the bag that the Bengals aren't going to be ranked that high. Anyway, so the Browns. So similar to the 49ers, I like the draft a lot. I like the way that they're moving. I like the way that they have acquired a lot of draft capital and have used it to move around, get players, they had some good free agent signings and stuff too. I think that they could be good in a couple of years if things go right. They have been doing similar stuff for a long time, but was with a different front office. So I have a lot more confidence in the current guys than in the previous ones. So I think some of these draft picks that they're making will actually pan out. I think they did really good trading down to get that Kansas City draft pick next year, as well as not reaching to take a quarterback. So they took Kaiser in the second round. If you remember, going into, pre-draft season, you heard more about Kaiser than you were Mahomes. And it was actually, if people talked about who the best quarterback was and they went beyond Watson and Trubisky, Kaiser was usually the first guy they were talking about. And before everybody overdrafts quarterbacks, for a while they were saying none of these guys might have been a first-round talent. All of them should be going in the early to mid-second round. Well, the other three went all really high in the first round, and Kaiser went exactly where they originally say he should be. So I think that was a good move for the Browns. All right, number 27, the Jacksonville Jaguars. The hype train of Jacksonville's going again this year. Has been for a couple of years now. I think it's going to do the same thing it's done in the other years, which is go off the rails and end up with a lousy season. Now, I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case moving forward. Again, I like the Coughlin, bringing Coughlin in. He obviously made this team really good in their early years, and he did a lot for the Giants. I think he's a smart coach. I think he can evaluate talent. He's a no-nonsense type of guy. I think that this organization needs that kind of stuff. And they do have quite a bit of talent. They have some good skill position guys on offense, and they have a lot of talent on defense. Now, can the defense pull all that talent together and actually play as good or better than the sum of its parts? Because they haven't the past couple of years, so that's going to be the challenge there. On offense, Bortles stinks. He's a bad quarterback. Unless he even when people talk about his 2015, he wasn't that good in 2015. He was not bad in 2015, and if he had continued to improve, maybe what they are seeing in him could have been justified, but he didn't. He regressed, and he's looked bad in the preseason and in practice, and all. It's preseason and practice, but still, when you looked bad in the season before that, and you still look bad in practice, that's a pretty big red flag. I don't think the Jags are going to do anything this year, but I also think they're probably going to move on from Bortles, which will be a good thing. And, again, in the coming years, maybe they'll do something. Number 26, the Cincinnati Bengals. As I mentioned, if you go back and look at our division previews, I had actually had the Bengals finishing below the Browns. I had the Browns with 4 wins. I had the Bengals with 3. Again, that is more a scheduling thing where I think the Browns had a couple of easier games compared to where the Bengals did. So just going game by game, I found 4 that I thought the Browns had a decent chance of winning, but I only saw 3 for the Bengals. The Bengals rank higher here, though, because, like I said, if I was just saying, just giving a guess on win totals, probably would have said the Browns would have been like 3, only had them 4, so that's not a big difference. Bengals, I probably would have said 5, and they ended up with 3, that kind of 5 or 6. So the Bengals are probably the first team on this list that I feel could actually finish quite a bit above this, even though I'm super low on them and I don't think they're going to be good. They do have some talent, and they do have a history of being a pretty good, at least regular season team. So maybe they will turn it around and be able to get a bit higher. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's not impossible. All right, number 25, the Indianapolis Colts. This is more or less where I would have put them anyway. Now, with the uncertainty with Luck, they could actually fall a bit below this. Because if he doesn't come back, he's missing week 1. They've said that. If he misses 2, 3, 4 games, that's going to be tough because this is already not a very good team. Not a very good defense. They don't have a ton of weapons outside of Hilton. I like Frank Gore, but he's like a million years old. He's been slowing down, and he's gonna slow down even more at some point. He's not gonna bust out and have 1,300 yards. He might get his 1,000. He might only get 800. He might even get less than that if he really regresses. If that happens, they're dead in the water. So if Luck only misses 1 game, this is probably where they'll finish. If he misses 4+ games, they could be a really, really bad team, and they could finish quite a bit lower than this in my final rankings. Number 24, the Buffalo Bills. So the Bills are definitely one of those teams that are doing the let's play for next year approach. They are definitely have gotten rid of some of their players, but they have gotten players back who are, not significantly worse, and they definitely have gotten some good draft capital for what they were doing. So can't really criticize the move, but I don't think that they're looking to take a big leap forward. No chance of coming in last since they're in the same division as the Jets. But I think they have pretty much no shot of finishing second either, unless Miami really crashes and burns. They still have Shady. They still have, I don't dislike Tyrod. I think he's a pretty good quarterback. He's not a superstar, but he's not bad. They have some guys on defense. They're not a terrible team, but they're not going to be a good team. Obviously I have them at 24, so I don't think they're going to be that good. Pretty much locked in for third in the division. They're not going to be bottom half of the league. They could surprise some people, but I think kind of 9 wins would be amazingly good. Anyway, so moving on. Next we have 23, the Washington Redskins. I don't hate the Skins. I actually think that I'm kind of surprised I'm putting them this low, but circumstances. So tough division. I think other 3 teams in the division are better than they are. So I think they're going to finish 4th, even though they're not going to be a 2 or 3 win team. I have them as a 6-win team, and most of that is because it is the tough division, and they have a tough out of division schedule with the playing the AFC West and stuff like that. So I think that they have this is more of a reflection of the tough circumstances as opposed to the quality of team. They're probably at least as good and probably even a little bit better than a couple of the teams that are going to be right ahead of them. But I think they're going to end up with a worse record and a much less chance of actually making the playoffs than most of these other ones. The biggest concern is obviously the defense was not that strong last year. I think they'll be better. They lost several of their playmakers on offense. If they can't be as good on offense, then even if the defense improves, they're probably not going to win anymore. And in my opinion, will probably win less games. If the new guys can click with Cousins and they put up just as many or even more points than last year, then they will be a pretty good team. They could still be a pretty good team. But I'll see it. I need to see it to believe it. Number 22, the New Orleans Saints. So I actually have them going 7-9 yet again. Have them finishing last in the division, but it's probably one of the better and more competitive division. Obviously, it was a 7-9 last place team. That's a pretty good division. So again, could possibly rank them higher than a couple of the teams that are in front of them, but this kind of thing. I have them as a 7-9 last place team. I do have a couple of 7-9 teams that are finishing like second. And third kind of things ahead of them because they have a slightly better chance of making the playoffs. Offense. We'll see if the offense takes a step back at all. I think Breeze is good enough that even if they lose, I liked Cooks. I think that was a good move for the Patriots to get him. That obviously was a big target that's going away for the Saints. Maybe they replace him, maybe they don't. Breeze is good enough to make whatever they have look good enough. Can they score 30 plus, or are they going to be more in the high 20s? That could make a pretty big difference. The defense, I think, will be slightly better, but I mean slightly better when you have been a bottom 2 or 3 defense every single season is not necessarily, damning you with faint praise there. Maybe they're only going to be like the 24th worst defense, Peterson is obviously another wild card. If he reverts back to like MVP quality Adrian Peterson, then that's the offense might actually be good enough to win finish well over 500, even if the defense still is giving up close to 30 points. All right, number 21, staying in the division, the Carolina Panthers. I think 2015 was a fluke. I don't think they were nearly that good. I don't think they were nearly as bad as they were last year. They were 3-time defending division champions going into last year, but one of those years they won the division with a sub 500 record. So, that's like not necessarily the most telling thing. So I have them about a 500 team. They could finish a little bit above, a little bit below. Obviously, I have them just ranked just ahead of the Saints. So that's mostly the fact that I picked them to be ahead of them in the division. So those two could flip pretty easily, even if they end up more or less in these positions for the entire season. Number 20, the Baltimore Ravens. Could actually have put them a little bit lower once it seems that Flacco is okay and he won't miss any time. If they were going to play more than 1 or 2 games with Ryan Mallett, this is similar to the Colts prediction a couple picks back, where that could be a really huge deal for them. Flacco is nowhere near as good as Luck, in my opinion, and I actually am not a huge fan of Luck. I definitely just don't think Flacco is elite. He's probably slightly above average, and when they have a good defense, that's enough. I think the defense is okay, but I don't think it's that good. And they don't have a lot of big playmakers. I like that they got Macklin. But otherwise, I think they're going to be fairly mediocre. I have them around 500. In that terrible division, because I already talked about the Browns and the Bengals. That's good enough for second. Again, so that's one reason they're a little bit higher than possibly some of these other teams, because even though I think that they're going to be really mediocre, they're going to be a really mediocre second place team, not a mediocre third or fourth place team. All right, speaking of mediocre second place teams, number 19, the Cardinals. Arizona, I don't, kind of the same story as with the Panthers. don't think they're as good as they were in 2015. I don't think they're nearly as bad as they were last year. Well, they probably actually are around that quality, but they were just so like hit or miss. I think they'll be a little more consistent this year, but I think consistent will put them, probably just below 500 again. But again, in a terrible division, that will have them finish second. Again, they do have some talent. I don't trust Palmer to be really good and healthy. He could be really good but get hurt, or he could stay more or less healthy, like healthy enough that he doesn't have to miss time, but maybe not healthy enough where he's not hampered by some kind of nagging injury. And he won't be bad, but I don't think he's going to be nearly as good as he showed in 2015, which was arguably his best or at least second best season. So I think that was a bit of an aberration. Fitzy's an ageless wonder. He could show his age at some point, but I'm not banking on that. I think he'll still be good. But again, he's one receiver, and he needs a guy to stay healthy and be able to throw to him. David Johnson, I think, is amazing. I think he's one of the best backs in the league. He had that injury in the last game, but I don't think that's a problem. If that turns out to hamper him at all, then Cardinals could actually finish quite a bit worse than this. All right, number 18, the LA Chargers. I think the Chargers have a lot of talent, but they've already gotten hit with their yearly, their annual injury bug, and have lost a couple of guys. A couple other guys seem to be limited, and they're depending on some guys who are hurt to come back and be healthy, like Keenan Allen. If they don't lose any other guys, somebody like Allen comes back, everybody on defense really gels, they could definitely be better than this. I'm not sold on what they're selling at this point, though, so kind of in this mediocre range, this mid-teens to early 20s, you could pretty much move these teams all over the place. I kind of actually have them at the top of this tier. And actually, I do have them finishing in last place. Again, good division, so the fact that I have them higher than, say, the Ravens or the Cardinals, who I think are second place teams, kind of shows that I do actually think that they have a pretty good roster, but I just don't think they're going to get it done. All right, number 17, the Detroit Lions. The Lions, I have finishing third in their division, but I have them finishing 9-7. So basically I have three pretty decent teams in the NFC North and one terrible team in the Bears. So I think the Lions are going to miss the playoffs. I do have them basically tying for the last spot, but I think that in the end they're not going to make it. They certainly could, especially because I have that division being very close. Basically have 11, 10, 9 wins for the top three teams, so it doesn't take too much for that to get reversed, and they could finish a bit higher. I like that they improved their line. I also think that one of the biggest reasons they didn't finish with a better record and possibly being at least in contention in their playoff game was that Stafford injury on his throwing hand. If you look at the numbers before and the numbers after that, both him personal stats and then how the team performed, they were quite different. So I think if he can avoid any kind of injury, then they could potentially be a bit better than this. But right now I have them 9 wins, which is the same that they had last year. So I'm just not predicting them to take a step forward. I'm not predicting them to take a step back either, though. All right, number 16, the Philadelphia Eagles. Another team I have at 9 wins. Another team I have missing the playoffs based on tiebreakers. Another third place 9-win team. So their story is actually fairly similar to the Lions there. The only difference is I do think that this represents an improvement for them. They won 7 games last year. They had after a good start, they had a tougher time in the second half. I guess before the second half, but after after the first quarter of the season, they had a tougher time. I think Wentz is a decent quarterback. I don't know if he's ever going to be a superstar. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. I do think he's poised to at least be an above average starter. So maybe he won't turn into Aaron Rodgers, but I think he could at least be, Andy Dalton, which, not great, but not bad. Honestly, I think probably he'll fall somewhere in between those two. They made some other good moves. They finally got him some weapons. He definitely had weak receivers to throw to last year, so I think that will help his development and just help the offense be better in general. If the defense can play as well as it did for the most part last year, I think that 9 wins is not unrealistic at all. And maybe they could even pull off 10. Maybe they can make the playoffs. So they're definitely a bubble team for me playoff wise. Number 15, the Miami Dolphins. I actually have them winning 10 games this year. Not surprisingly, having them finishing a relatively strong second in the division. I don't think they're going to be particularly close to the Patriots, but I think they're going to be clearly heads above the other two, the Bills and the Jets in the division. So I have them winning 10 games, which is the same as last year. I think their schedule is significantly tougher, so they could actually be a better team and still not win any extra games. The Tannehill injury is disappointing. So I talked about this a little bit more in depth. You can watch our AFC East preview to see that. But basically, I think Cutler's, you know what you're going to get with Cutler. The best of Cutler is probably what you would have expected to get from Tannehill. It's just that Tannehill, improved so much last year that maybe he was going to be better than he had been up to this point. So you kind of had that like wild card there where Cutler's been around enough, you don't really expect anything better than what the best of Cutler has been. And obviously there's no guarantee they get that. If Cutler gets hurt or plays like bad Cutler, they could certainly fall quite a bit below this. Number 14, the Denver Broncos. So I actually have the Broncos winning less games than the Dolphins and finishing lower in their division than the Dolphins. The Dolphins I have missing the playoffs, but only on the tiebreaker. So they could easily make it. The Broncos I don't have particularly close to the playoffs. So based on me saying that this list is based on their probability of winning the Super Bowl and not just the best teams, why would I possibly have the Broncos ahead of the Dolphins? Since it is so early in the season, well, before the season, obviously, any team can potentially step up and do a little bit better than what you expect them to do. So, if the Broncos can get into the playoffs, they, I think, are more dangerous than the Dolphins. The Dolphins, I think, are a better all-around team, but the Broncos have that defense. So, assuming you don't have any particular sliding quality from the no-fly zone or from the pass rush, and if they can fix the problem they had last year with run defense, that defense alone could, get them into and maybe win some games in the playoffs, just like 2015. Amazing defense, kind of crappy offense. It was enough to carry them. So they had to do one thing so well that it could make up for some of the other stuff and makes them somewhat dangerous. Where, like I said, some of those teams right behind them overall probably do most things a little bit better than the Broncos, but the things the Broncos do well is so much better that they can potentially overshadow some of those weaknesses more so than the team that's just kind of okay at everything. All right, number 13, the Minnesota Vikings. They actually are, I have them as a playoff team, but I have them 13th. That we'll explain that a little bit more in a second. But I have them finishing second in the division. I think they have a good defense. You have a little bit of a wild card on the offense. Bradford, for all the crap that Bradford gets, he was pretty good last year. Obviously, he was very efficient. He wasn't pushing the ball downfield. He wasn't making a lot of, rainbow passes to like streaking wide receivers, but he got the job done when he needed to. I think the run game will be improved since they obviously were expecting Peterson to play, and then he got hurt and played cruddy when he was in the game. So, Latavius Murray's nothing to write home about, but he will probably mostly stay healthy and will give you a decent season. And then Dalvin Cook could be very good as a rookie, so I think that helps out a lot there. The defense is very good, and I think they will stay very good. I don't put them on the same par as the Broncos right before them. If I did, I would actually have them quite a bit higher. But they have the ability to be certainly a top 10, quite easily a top 5 type of defense, and that it should be enough to make them a serious playoff contender. Number 12, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I like the Bucs. I think they're a good young team. I think they've made a lot of strides forward. I like Winston. He's not my favorite young quarterback, but I definitely like him. I definitely think he has some talent. I think he is poised to take another step forward. I like some of the things that they did to help him out. Jackson was a nice pickup. I really like the O.J. Howard draft pick. And if Doug Martin can come back and be, the all-pro level Doug Martin and not the crappy suspended injured Doug Martin, then, they could be real good. Solid defense. Could kind of go either way. I think they're above average. They could step up and be like, a top 10 type squad if things break right for them, but they're certainly not bad. They're definitely well above average. Number 11, the Tennessee Titans. As I think is going to be the case for a lot of the next decade, I think the Bucs and the Titans are going to be talked about a lot in the same sense because of Mariota coming in the same, the number 2 guy right behind Winston in that draft, and both of them turning those teams around and being very good young quarterbacks. If when it's team Winston and team Mariota, I actually am more of a Mariota guy. But I don't think there's a huge difference between them. I think they both were quite talented coming out of college. I think both of them started off strong, and I think both of them are progressing very nicely. So I put the Titans a little bit ahead. The defenses are close. I might rank the Titans slightly better than the Bucs, but not a lot. I like the Titans. I like the Titans line a lot, and I like the running game. So those are 2 big things. The exotic smash mouth. I enjoy that. I think it's pretty good. I have them as a strong wild card team this year. I have the Bucs making the playoffs too, but they're of the 9 win, but they actually make the tiebreaker. Where the Titans I have is a clear wild card team getting the 5th seed. All right, into the top 10. So as I mentioned, the Vikings I have making the playoffs, yet I have them technically out of the playoffs at number 13. That is because I have at number 10 the Dallas Cowboys. So this is my pick for the least likely to end the season where they started team. So they're basically here because of the Ezekiel Elliott suspension drama. So originally, when I thought he was missing games 1 through 6, well, originally before the suspension came down, I think I probably had them as high as 3 or 4. When it first came out that he had the suspension, I had them just out of the playoffs. Now that they have changed it so he's playing the first game, and then who knows what's going to happen. Still have not heard on that. If he's just serving, games 2 through 7 instead, that I will probably have them a little bit lower. If it ends up getting reduced or vacated or pushed off till potentially next season, a la like the Deflategate thing a couple of years ago, they could move up a lot again. So most other kind of suspension type things, I don't think I really had change where I thought teams were going to finish because I don't think they had a big enough impact. With him, especially looking at some of the games they're playing, I think it does have a pretty big impact. So originally, when I included the Giants whole season opener with them, I had them going 2-4 without him. I actually still have them losing that Giants game, but I definitely could see that one more likely that they could pull it off than I did before. But in the 6 games that at the moment it looks like he would be serving the suspension, I have him going 3-3. But I could actually see all 3 of those losses flipping. One of them definitely, I have them losing to Arizona. I think they would definitely beat Arizona without that. I have them losing to Denver. Denver, as I mentioned, the one problem they have on defense last year was stopping the run. So if they did not fix that, I think that the Cowboys would have at least a decent, if not very good chance of winning that game. And I have them losing to the Packers. I still probably would have them losing to the Packers in that particular game, but with Dallas at full strength, it's a lot more of a toss-up. So anyway, that particular item, that suspension, kind of throws everything out of whack. So if it goes through and the way I have predicted the records, I have them just missing the playoffs as one of those 9-win teams, but they would miss the tiebreaker. if they play all of the games, they could actually finish as high as the second seed. So that makes a big difference. So as I said, I don't expect the Cowboys to be at 10. They're either going to be a bit higher or a bit lower. But for right now, I kind of just split the difference. All right, number 9, the Kansas City Chiefs. So I like the Chiefs a lot going into the offseason. I did not like necessarily a lot of the moves that they made. So their biggest issues are on offense, yet they got rid of Macklin, who was, their best receiver last year, or well, their best receiver in general the last couple of years. Obviously, they expect Hill to take a step forward, and that's fine, but that doesn't mean they didn't need somebody else as well. Also, the way that they went into the draft, getting Mahomes, again, maybe Mahomes will be a great quarterback and the quarterback of the future, and 10 years from now, they'll look like complete geniuses because he's going to be coming off, his second MVP or something like that. Doubt that, but something like that can happen. But it certainly was not a win now thing for a team that was the number 2 seed, won 12 games last year. So they could have drafted a high impact player that could have pushed them a little bit forward this year. I think they're still a good team. It's just that I think they could have been maybe a top 3 or 4 team if they had really pushed for saying this was a window and they pushed for it, as opposed to being like, I don't think they were quite good enough to win it, so let's beef ourselves up for a year or two from now. So like I said, maybe it's the right move, but I just don't think it was the right move for 2017. All right, number 8, the Houston Texans. Texans have a great defense, as we saw last year. And now they're getting Watt back. Everybody talks about, well, they still have the number 1 defense without J.J. Watt. There's no team that is not going to be better if they have J.J. Watt on it. So if he's back and healthy and is still J.J. Watt, that could be a historically good defense. The offense, for all the crap that they take, they actually have some pretty good skill guys, and the line's not, maybe not the best, but it's certainly not bad. It really was just the quarterback. So Osweiler was so bad that Watson/Savage combo does not have to be that much better for them to really take a step forward. I think Watson's going to be good, at least in the future. I don't know how well he will play this year, but if he ends up taking over the starting job by, quarter through the season, halfway through the season, whatever, and plays well, this team could be pretty dangerous. Even though, obviously, a rookie quarterback is a hard thing, hard position to, have a team depend on. But like I said, I think they would lean on the defense and, limit Watson to just play to his strengths and not, really try to push him. So I think this could be a very good team. Even if they're not, even if the quarterbacks are pretty bad again, I still think that they have a decent chance of making the playoffs just on the back of that defense and a decent running game, and the fact that even if with a crappy quarterback, they still have some decent guys to throw to. All right, so number 7, the New York Giants. I am not nearly as high on the Giants as a lot of people are, but they are going to be a pretty good team. And the fact that Dallas might not be at full strength for a big portion of the year gives them an in to take the division. So right now I have them winning the division. I have them as the 4th seed, but that's still good enough to host a playoff game, which that, like I said, we're talking about who's most likely to win the Super Bowl. If you're hosting a playoff game, even if that's a wild card game, you're more likely to win the Super Bowl than a lot of other teams are. Defense is great. The New York pass defense, the NYPD, is very good. It's up there with the no-fly zone as one of the best ones in the league. And they have a strong line as well. Like their front 7 is also very good. So this is going to be easy a top 5 defense in my opinion, barring major injuries. The offense, Beckham is obviously great, but he's just one receiver. Eli, if he plays like 2014, then they might be able to do something. If he plays more like he did last year, then I don't think much of it. Marshall, he's actually kind of the same deal. Like if he reverts back to like how he played in 2014, he could be a monster. If he plays more like he did last year, then especially if Eli is not stepping it up, then it's not that impressive. Their run game's more or less non-existent, and I like the Ingram, the tight end that they Engram, I think it is, the tight end that they drafted. But again, you can't make too much out of a rookie tight end. Like even Gronk wasn't that great as a rookie, so you don't. It's rare that you see a guy come in and really dominate at that position as a rookie. And they definitely have issues on the line as well. So I'm not like overly enamored with them just because they got Brandon Marshall like a lot of people are. But still, I think they're going to win the division pending what happens with the Cowboys. And they're not a bad team. I just don't think that they're like the best team in the NFC like some people are saying. Obviously, I don't have them nearly. If you look at the teams that I have not talked about yet, obviously I don't have them all that high in the NFC either. All right, number 6, the Green Bay Packers. Overall, it's a pretty good team. The defense should be a bit better than last year. They had a lot of injuries, so I think they'll be better. I don't think they're going to be good, but they should be closer to average. Maybe some smidge below average, or a little bit above average. If I had to bet, I'm actually going to say they're going to be average to slightly above average, but I don't think they're going to be as bad as last year. Running game should be a little bit better now that Montgomery has had a full year to go and work on that. Plus, they drafted some guys, so I think that'll be a little bit better. My biggest question is the line. They lost some guys, some good guys. If Rodgers doesn't get that level of protection that he has in the past, he might do a lot more running outside the pocket, which, he does convert a lot of stuff out of that, but that's not a good way to live your life. So if he has to, scramble outside the pocket, keep plays alive, every play, obviously not every play, but, at a higher percentage than he typically does, he's going to take more sacks. He's going to throw more interceptions. He's going to have a lower completion rate. It's just how it is. As good as he is at making something out of nothing, if you just have so many more of those opportunities, it's going to take a long time. He's going to just have more things not go right. Even if he makes plays at the same rate that he always has, if he's just doing it more, it's going to be more likely that he doesn't make a play, because you're replacing those. The plays you're replacing aren't bad plays. You're replacing plays that were gimmies. Hey, I can stand in the pocket and find an open receiver, or I get a good, I've handed off and have a good running play. You're not, those are the plays that you're replacing with, I'm going to have to run around for an extra 5 seconds outside the pocket and see if I can find a receiver. Those are low percentage plays, even if he is good at them. Anyway, so I think Green Bay will be good. I don't think they're going to be great. They certainly are good enough to be able to get out of the NFC if things click right, but I don't see them as, again, I've seen them as high as number 2 in some lists. I don't think they're that good. All right, number 5, the Oakland Raiders. I'm pretty high on the Raiders, and actually a couple weeks ago I probably would have had them a little higher than this. That actually has more to do with the teams in front of them as opposed to what they've done. As in, I don't think they did anything to make them look worse. I just think that some of the other teams look better. So I think that I have them winning the division. I actually have them as the number 2 seed. I have them tying the Steelers, but winning on a tiebreaker. I think that they will. So I have them at 13 wins. I have them as actually one of the teams that could beat New England at some point in the regular season. If you looked at our division previews, I actually did the Patriots at 16-0 thing, but I did say I just don't see that happening. I do think that they're going to lose some games, and that the game on the road with Oakland I have as one of the most likely to lose. That game is going to be in Mexico City, so that's the biggest reason. If it was at the Black Hole in Oakland, I would have picked them. But I don't think that the home field advantage is as strong. It's certainly not as the same as having a neutral site, but it is not as strong of a home field advantage. So that's why I didn't straight up pick them in that game. But they still could win that. And they are certainly good enough to win the Super Bowl. I'm just a little bit worried about the defense. They have some stars, but they definitely have some holes. And a lot of it will depend also on what Marshawn Lynch does. If he, has fresh legs after basically sitting for a season and a half, then, if he's, full on beast mode, 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns kind of guy, then they will be very strong on offense and will be able to make up for weaknesses on defense. If he's more like the 2015 often injured and didn't play amazing when he wasn't Marshawn Lynch, then I might have them a little bit too high at this point. All right. Number 4, the Seattle Seahawks. So they've, the Legion of Boom, big-time defense, stayed a big-time defense. Then they picked up Sheldon Richardson. Man, this could be a really, really, really good defense. Like, they could get back to, so if again, barring the injuries or big regressions from guys who are getting a little bit older but are far from old, overall, if Richardson can like get his head on straight and play up to his abilities, this defense could be as good as that 2013 defense. Obviously, they've stayed at an elite level since then, but I think that was clearly the best of the singular seasons that the Seahawks team has had. So I think they can really challenge that. The offense, obviously, they lost Curse in that deal, and they've had line trouble, and they lost Fant for the year, who was going to be their left tackle, and it wasn't exactly like a superstar to begin with. So the fact that they took a guy who was kind of average to below average at that position anyway, and now have to replace him with somebody who's not even as good as that. Wilson could be running for his life again. If he can stay healthy and they can get him a decent amount of protection, and all the new backs that are coming in like Lacey and the young guys can produce, I don't think they're going to be a dynamic 30-point-a-game offense, but they can certainly be serviceable to, slightly above average. Wilson is a really good quarterback. So obviously, starting from that, they have the potential, and that defense is so good that they don't have to be scoring 25 to 30 points a game. If they can consistently get in the high teens, and so if they average close to 20 but rarely fall under the 14 to 17 point mark, they're going to win a lot of games. Number 3, defending NFC champs, the Atlanta Falcons. I do actually have them finishing as the number 1 seed. I don't think that they're going to have a big Super Bowl hangover. That might come into play here or there, but I don't think that they're going to just fall off the face of the earth. The offense is just too good, and the defense definitely is improving. They had a lot of young guys, I think that, and they had a lot of guys who were young and started playing better as the season went on. They're getting like Trufant back. Vic Beasley, I think, is good. I don't think he's necessarily going to be as good as he was last year, but he is a good young player. And like I said, the offense, they probably won't be as good as last year, but they still have most of that talent. Let's see what happens without Shanahan calling the plays. But overall, I think that the offense is still going to be a juggernaut, and the defense will be better. I actually don't have them coming out of the NFC because I have them losing. If you look at our playoff predictions that we released earlier, I do have them losing to the Seahawks in the NFC Championship game. But as I said, it's like the amazing defense versus the amazing offense gave a little bit of edge to the defense, but I could certainly see that going the other way as well. So the Falcons definitely going to be a top contender again this year. Number 2, the Pittsburgh Steelers. In a world without the Patriots, I would have them number 1, and I do think that they are probably a smidge better than the teams right behind them. Really, for the most part, they 2 through 5, maybe even 6, you could probably put in any order. 5. I think that those teams are all a little bit better than Green Bay. You could move in pretty much any order, though. I do think the Steelers are just a smidge ahead of these other guys. The offense is really good. I think the defense is going to be better. I think they're going to struggle against the Patriots like they always have. I think that if somebody else knocks the Patriots off in the playoffs, the Steelers would be my odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl. If they play the Patriots in the playoffs, I think that they are not going to be that likely. I don't know why, but the Patriots seem to have their numbers. It doesn't matter. It's been going on for 17 years. Playoffs, regular season, home, away, doesn't matter. With Roethlisberger, with the guys before him, it doesn't matter. Bell healthy, Bell hurt. It just doesn't seem to matter. The Patriots always seem to play the Steelers well and pretty much always win. The Steelers during since the Patriots started their run in 2001, the Steelers have gone to 3 Super Bowls, winning 2. all 3 of those years, they avoided playing the Patriots in the playoffs. They played the Patriots 3 times in the playoffs since 2001. All 3 times they lost in the AFC Championship game to the Patriots. 2 of those games were also in Pittsburgh. So I think if they meet in the playoffs, you have to think the Patriots are going to be heavy favorites, as they should be, really. But if somebody else can upset the Patriots before they play the Steelers, then I think the Steelers are the most likely team to win the Super Bowl this year. And so, not surprising, number 1, the New England Patriots. As I said, I have them going 16-0 in our division previews, but that's just because I'm looking at the schedule, and I just don't see where the loss is. Like, that doesn't mean they won't lose games, but I just don't see the obvious game that they're going to lose. As I said, the Steelers could be one of those. It's like their third, for the Patriots, it's their 3rd straight road game. And obviously the Steelers are a very good team. But I can't pick the Steelers because the Patriots just seem to own them. I have the Falcons as the number 3 team, and they're going to be playing the Patriots. But that's going to be at home. Maybe if it was in Atlanta, I would have picked the Falcons. But at home, I'm going to give the advantage to the Patriots, even though the Falcons could win that game. As I said during the Oakland preview, if that game had been played in Oakland as opposed to a quote-unquote home game in Mexico City for Oakland, I probably would have picked Oakland to win that game. But on something that's a little more neutral-ish, I'm pick the Patriots over them. So assuming the Pats end up with the number 1 seed, so they're only playing at home, prior to potentially going to the Super Bowl, I think they're the number 1 team. I think they are the team to beat until they start proving that they are not. I said I don't think they're going to go 16-0, but it's certainly possible. I think I think it's unlikely they don't lose at least 1, probably more like 2. If they end up less than 13-3, I'd actually be very surprised. But 16-0 seems unlikely, even though, like I said, I can't tell you which game that they should lose. All right, so this is that's the power rankings preseason. We will be back after sometime next week after all the games are played, and we will do this again, and we should do it again every week until we have a Super Bowl 52 champion. All right, so thanks for watching, and please like, comment, and share the videos, and subscribe to our channel. You can also follow us on social media. Facebook and Twitter are both at MA Sports Central. Thanks, and we will see you soon.